Director of Music, Mr. Joseph Palazzolo. We have already become good friends, I hope, and have had some fun putting together the music. Keep in mind, this is first time playing pretty much everything, so to the extent that we can help out, and you can hear my voice is a little on the weaker side, that will assist him in learning our songs even better. So, a little bit of a preview of what's ahead next week. The program that was postponed from June 24th with Mike Whitty about humanism and how it will help us deal with people that make us, I won't use the word, we'll be speaking about that. And then the following 2 weeks, we have B'nai Mitzvah. We'll be celebrating the bar mitzvah of Nico Tabakman on the 22nd, and on the 29th, it might be reversed, check your calendar, Tommy Zeldis. So we're excited about that. And then when we return, I'm going to be speaking about religious Christian nationalism in our country, which is kind of a topic we're touching on as well tonight. So we will begin with the first reading. Thank you, Arthur. Where the world is dark with illness, let us kindle the light of healing. Where the world is bleak with suffering, let us kindle the light of caring. Where the world is dimmed by lies, let us kindle the light of truth. May we honor the lighting of this flame, and may it inspire us to acts of goodness that illumine all the world. May in the mitzvah of kindling these Shabbat candles remind us to sanctify life with the power of light. I'd like to invite Melanie Goldberg to join me as we light our Shabbat candles. Our readers tonight are Miriam Leventhal, Susie Friedman, John Arking, Marty Bernstein, and Lonnie Fleischer. And we'll begin. Miriam.
Shabbat Shalom. Our ancestors hallowed the Sabbath day. In dark times, it was a refuge for them, and in times of prosperity, it gave them rest and joy. As a community, we celebrate the opportunity to gather in that spirit, even as we imagine Shabbat anew. May we too find rest from the day's work and refuge from our cares. May we too feel the warmth of love and companionship. May we too feel our joys heightened and our sorrows softened by the love we give and receive. May we be blessed with Shabbat joy. May we be blessed with Shabbat peace. May we be blessed with the Shabbat light.
Shalom Aleichem, Mohavei Shalom, Shomerei Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Rodefei Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. Boachem Shalom, Mohavei Shalom, Zeichem Shalom. Miyom Zelayamim Aba'im, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Mohavei Shalom, Shomerei Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Rodefei Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
Tonight, as we welcome Shabbat, we look to this moment in time to once again gain perspective in where we have been and where we are going. On this Shabbat, may we find the space to consider and to challenge. May we find the courage to do what is right. Together, let us find meaning, calm our anxieties, understand our purpose, and appreciate our accomplishments. Let us find the strength to continue working for ourselves and others. Let us share the burdens and the blessings of responsibility. Let us locate the will to change the things we can no longer accept. Let us do all of this and more, mindful that we are a community of humanistic Jewish believers, unbroken and unbowed, prepared to face all that life has in store for us. Let us strive to feel these bonds of belief and community when we are together and when we are apart. Let us rejoice in our ties. Let us rejoice in our collective power. Let us rejoice in the gift of Shabbat.
There's a place with answers we are seeking. There's a place to find that light of hope. Where's the strength to realize our vision? Yesh makom b'tocheinu. יש מקום בתוכנו. Look within yourself, you'll find it there. There's a place with wisdom that can guide us. There's a place where we know what's right or wrong. Where's the path to peace that we all long for? יש מקום בתוכנו, יש מקום בתוכנו. Look within yourself, you'll find it there.
At one with our forebears, we affirm that righteousness and enlightenment shall be our torch. We shall teach these values diligently to our children all the days of our lives. We shall endeavor to live by these values in the comfort of our homes or on cold and wind-swept roads. Whether adversity bows our heads or fulfillment makes our spirits soar, our hands shall mete out justice to all, and our eyes shall be open to the light of truth. We shall emblazon our paths through life with this light as a beacon for all humankind.
My strength is in me and in you and in you. strength is in me and in you and in you.
A wise rabbi once said, "In humanistic Judaism, the preservation of dignity for each and every individual is a core value. Is there dignity if freedom of choice is offered only to men? Is there dignity if freedom of choice is available only to the rich? Is there dignity when government interferes with the decisions that belong to a woman and her doctor? Is there dignity when the health needs of one gender are covered by insurance and the health needs of another gender are controlled by the religious beliefs of their employer? No. Dignity requires that each and every individual have access to the quality, comprehensive health care that they want and need. Dignity requires that each and every individual has the right to choose what will happen to their body. Dignity requires that each and every individual has the freedom to choose their own religious beliefs without government interference. We honor reproductive freedom as a Jewish value and a right for all people.
על שלושה דברים העולם קיים, על שלושה דברים העולם קיים, על האמת ועל הדין ועל השלום, על האמת ועל הדין ועל השלום, על שלושה דברים העולם קיים, על שלושה דברים העולם קיים.
Okay. If there is to be peace in the world,
There must be
peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations,
There
must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, must be peace between neighbors. And if there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. And if there is peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart.
נעשה שלום, שלום בעולם, נעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל
In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, our well wishes are extended to these members of our community and their loved ones, to Joe Gaydon, to Rabbi Peter Schweitzer, and to anyone whom you'd like to remember as we go around the room, beginning on this side. Ed? Anybody over here on this side? Jane? Anybody over on this side here? We miss anyone? May all who suffer know that they're not alone. May they be healed quickly, and may they experience a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits.
Mekom ha'koach betocheinu, mekorot ha'bracha michevrotenu. May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Shalom. Mekorot habracha michevrotenu. May those in need of healing know refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. In memoriam. I lost your voice, I lost your timbre, your cadence, your accent. I lost your voice. I had it the first month. I had it the first year. Then it faded. Then it was gone. I lost your voice. I can't hear it anymore. I lost your voice, but not your words. Your words of approval, your words of wisdom, your words of support, of love, of guidance. I lost your voice, but I'll always have your words.
Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Once again, we come into a Shabbat with a slaughter behind us in this country. I won't give a sermon about it tonight because I'm talking about something else, but I should note that it was in many ways the Jewish community that was targeted, as well as the symbols of our country. You probably heard about the little 2-year-old girl found wandering around, her parents dead, Jewish girl. I don't really have much else to say except that the only way to honor these deaths is to work for change. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who died at this season in the years past, those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own, including those who died this past week in that horrible shooting. Tonight, our congregation mourns the recent death of Robert Arking, Zichro Livracha, and of Miriam, Rabbi Miriam Jarris's aunt, Judith Rockert. We also observe tonight the art sites of Lucille Arking, Nathaniel Coburn, Lillian Finkelstein, Sheldon Glass, Grace Grunberg, Emil Haas, Ida Harris, Tova Malinsky, George Molnar, Ida Molnar, Jean Rottenberg, Louis Skip Siegel, Margaret Stowicki, Rose Vidra, Eva Beltzman, Judith Dessenberg, Clara Gardone, Sylvia Gottesman Creed, Sidney Hillenberg, Rose Jacobs, Merrill Miller, Gerald Rose, David Sacker, Jeffrey Siegel, Norman Tepley, Myrtle Weiner, and Levi Wohlberg. If there's someone whom you're thinking about whose name you wish to add to that list, we'll start again on this side of the room. Jean. I'm sorry, Melanie. Esther. Anybody on this side? Anybody else? Anybody over here? Yehi Zikram Livracha, we say, may memories of these people provide a blessing for us, by which we mean that as we go through life in their absence, may each of the precious memories that we keep in our hearts provide us a measure of comfort in their absence. If you can do so comfortably, please rise for our humanistic interpretation of the Kaddish. We read together, Nit Gadal v'nit Kadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us each in our own way take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May justice and peace permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. Please be seated. Ann Hines and Elizabeth Hines. I did receive those names by email, and I apologize to my friend Jamie in Scotland for not having the opportunity to read them due to some technical difficulties with my own phone. And we send our words of comfort to him as well. Arthur, I don't know what's on the next slide because I think I might have forgotten to insert the thing. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Arthur, is come up here and turn off the projector. We all know this song, right? That's our closing song. You don't need it in front of you. So Arthur will turn off the projector so we can save a little electricity and a little traveling music, please, Maestro. No, you're already seated. I was going to give Arthur some traveling music. I don't know if anybody saw, they were interviewing, no, you have to push it twice. There you go, one more time. The little ritual is that he dismantles that over there, and I always turn the thing off, so we never had the lesson in that. So, we are now 2 weeks out from that horrible, dreadful decision by our Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs case. I don't know about you, but I have not even begun to stop reeling from the decision. It was one that ignored entirely the principle of stare decisis, that is, the respect for precedents. They are what enables us to live in a system of laws where we're not constantly placed in a state of whiplash by changes that a court makes. It is a decision that's undoubtedly going to endanger the lives and or well-being of millions of women. I'll talk about that in a moment. One that threatens the free exercise of religion for many groups in favor of one small group, one shrinking group's definition of what it means to be alive, to have personhood. And it is a decision that portends the loss of other hard-won rights by the hands of this court, where one justice is already threatening to revisit cases about same-sex marriage and, of all things, sodomy between consenting adults and birth control. Several months ago, I spoke about abortion rights at a time when we were cautiously, perhaps naively, definitely naively, optimistic that this court would uphold 50 years of precedent. But we discovered with that leak by Alito or by his office that it would not. And yet, even though we knew it was coming like a train, we were standing on the tracks as it approached us. It did not stop us from feeling that gut punch that we're still feeling today. Tonight, I want to address a few of the salient points that are raised, a few of the salient issues that are raised by this tragic change of events, a tragedy created by human beings with little respect for people who have any different worldview than themselves. Because I'd like us to better understand the implication of Dobbs for our other rights, to understand a little bit about the motivations behind the ruling, about which I'll speak more in August. Even before they released the decision, many in the Jewish community were already sending me emails, copies of the lawsuit that had been filed by Congregation Lador Vador in Palm Beach County, Florida, my old stomping grounds. I happen to know this rabbi. In fact, my mom used to live next to his dad, who was a very prominent Reform rabbi. He's also an attorney. We had many conversations. I attended his services. He came to mine at Beth Adam. And so I was very proud of him for doing this. It got national attention and support from our own SHJ's initiative, Jews for a Secular Democracy, which publicized its support for this lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit was not based upon Dobbs particularly. It happened before that ruling. It was based upon, or in response to, a lawsuit in Florida, a ruling in the Florida, legislation passed. It's still hard to get my mouth around that. Filed in Florida, or passed in Florida, signed by that wonderful man of open-mindedness and principles. Boy, I'm glad I'm not there anymore. Have I told you how much I love living in Michigan lately? Put a total ban on abortions after 15 weeks. In the suit, the congregation cited the Florida Constitution, with which I'm somewhat familiar, which has a freedom of religious expression clause that may sound a little bit familiar to you. There shall be no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting or penalizing the free expression thereof. Rightly, Lador Vador and its lawyers viewed this as a penalty for the practice and free exercise of Jewish religious conscience. And of course, everybody should know that this is nearly word for word the same as in the United States Constitution, First Amendment. The Florida lawsuit pointed out that the 15-week abortion ban is a means by which one religious group is imposing its own views on all Florida residents. Other religious groups, such as Jews, do not share the same view of the beginning of life as those contained in the new law. These laws and the opinion by the court in Dobbs explicitly recognize life as beginning at conception. That, it should be well understood, is a religious position. It's not a medical opinion. It's not a biological fact. It is a religious feeling, an opinion. Since the Dobbs decision, there's been more and more discussion about the implications of this decision for free religious expression. I remember when I spoke about it many months ago, and I brought it up just tangentially. A member of our congregation who is very involved in the fight for reproductive rights and freedoms said to me that they had never heard it expressed that way. And I was surprised because coming from my angle, that's always been a prime discussion. But in fact, many in the Jewish community and in the larger American scene are quite surprised that that is indeed the case. We've become so brainwashed by the right-to-lifers that we think, well, you know, they must have some basis in this idea that life begins at conception, but they don't. This is an idea that is firmly planted in their own religious supernaturalist beliefs. The fact that Judaism sees things differently probably accounts for the massive Jewish communal support for abortion rights. We are number 2 in the country in terms of religious organizations, well, we're not really a religious organization, but religious communities, as most demographic studies declare us to be. We know it's different, but that's how they talk about us. We're just behind the Unitarians, who have their own reasons and their own theologies. And if you subtract some Orthodox, not all, maybe not even the majority, I'd say that we're right up there in the high 90s in support of abortion rights. Now, let me start by pointing out that Jewish tradition has no unequivocal voice about abortion. There are a variety of different opinions, particularly among the Orthodox scholars. But that doesn't mean there aren't areas of agreement. At last week's rally for abortion rights, some of you were there with me at Temple Israel, a very nice crowd and lots of rabbis from every denomination, Orthodox, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Humanistic, pointed out, and mentioned, by the way, in the Free Press article, and Orthodox. I would say a lot of Orthodox rabbis were there, but some, and particularly a man that I've come to admire a great deal, our JCRC head, Rabbi Asher Lopatin, who got up and spoke about these various Jewish opinions. He pointed out that his rabbi taught him one thing, and he learned from another rabbi something else, and he was discussing this only from an Orthodox point of view, going on to point out that he wasn't even accounting for all the different opinions which deserve the same respect of religious expression guaranteed to us by the First Amendment in Reform Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism, Conservative Judaism, and more. His bottom line is, in the speech, was that these varied opinions are the proof in the pudding, if you will, that Jewish women have always had the freedom of choice to consult the sources that they find most compelling in the Jewish tradition, or the rabbis of their choosing when making decisions about their family planning, including the right to abort. Well, that choice, that religious freedom, has now been taken from us, from the Jewish community and many other communities, by this Supreme Court. Jewish women can no longer make the decision in accord with their own religious sensibilities, because the definition of when life begins has been accorded to just this one group. They say it's a conception, end of discussion in America. There is not one single Jewish source anywhere from any time in our long, long history that ever said that life begins at conception. Not one. Not an intimation of it. Sources in the Talmud note that the fetus is just water. That's what they call it, just water, before 40 days of gestation. And that even after that, a fetus is not an independent being, but a part of a woman's body. Potential for life, yes, but part of a woman's body with no independent rights whatsoever. These traditions, by and large, view life beginning only when, and this, of course, this is also a supernatural definition, the human is ensouled at birth. In other words, takes its first breath of oxygen. The Jewish tradition equating the nephesh, the soul, with the breath of air, the first one. Even discussions in the Torah itself, which talk about the accidental injury of a woman such that she would lose a pregnancy, do not regard that as murder. It's a completely separate category. It's considered an injury or accident to the woman, not murder. Nowhere does it say murder. It doesn't intimate murder, not in any way, shape, or form. On top of this, all Jewish communities, including secular Jews, including humanistic Jews, hold fast to a principle, a tradition, if you will, a Jewish value, called pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh is the rule, the law, the tradition, the custom that posits that a human life takes precedence over just about every other Jewish religious obligation. There are a couple of small exceptions, actual murder being one of them, but abortion is not. The saving of a woman's life up to the point of birth is in Jewish law, custom, tradition, a Jewish value, considered to be required. The saving of the woman's life is required without consideration of the fetus. And we hear a lot about late-term abortions in this country, as if most women are carrying a baby for 8 months and, oh, I don't want it anymore. When in fact, it's fewer than 1%. And it is never, ever an abortion due to family planning. It's always because the woman's life is at stake. The vast majority of abortions, overwhelming, take place at earlier stages. This removal from Jewish free expression of religion, or whatever our deeply held beliefs are as Jews, of observing the important obligation, the mitzvah, as the traditional Jews call it, the obligation of pikuach nefesh, has been taken from us. And it's no longer mere rhetoric to say this will or may happen. It's happening already. We saw in the past few days, though not a Jewish case, the incident of an Ohio 10-year-old pregnant by rape and forced to leave the state to seek what was considered by her physicians a life-saving abortion. Or consider the Texas abortion ban that pretends to care about the life of the mother a little bit, supposedly allowing for abortion in cases of medical emergency, but so vague that even before Dobbs, Texas doctors were refraining from conducting abortions when the life of the woman was in danger for fear of criminal or civil liability. Jews and many others, as I have said, do not accept this narrow evangelical Christian / Catholic understanding that life begins at conception. We prioritize the safety and the well-being of the mother. The abortion bans now prevent Jews from following this singular, important Jewish value, Jewish mitzvah, pikuach nefesh, saving a life. A Jewish woman and her family facing an ectopic pregnancy, which requires an abortion to save her life, are denied the freedom to observe the mitzvah pikuach nefesh. A Jewish woman and her family facing a septic uterus, which requires an abortion to save her life, are denied the freedom to observe the mitzvah pikuach nefesh. A Jewish woman and her family facing the experience of an uncompleted natural miscarriage, which requires an abortion to save her life, are being denied the freedom to observe the mitzvah of pikuach nefesh. The woman will die, and with her has died the freedom of her Jewish family and community to make a decision about abortion not informed by Christianity, but by the teachings of their rabbis or Judaism or whatever sources they turn to. Now, I realize that as humanists, we don't necessarily turn to Jewish law, but we are part of this large body of people that has honored this value for a very long time. But even to the extent that humanism and humanistic Judaism are informed by such values as pikuach nefesh, which should be honored by an expressly literal understanding of the First Amendment, no Second Amendment nutsiness there, no well-regulated whatevers it is, let's ignore that sentence, right out of the bat, shall not prohibit the free exercise thereof. We find ourselves, together with all Christians who are non-fundamentalist, Muslims who have a very different view of abortion than Christians do, even conservative Muslims, with anyone who holds their religious or deeply held beliefs sacred to themselves, denied our right to consult our traditions, our philosophers, our thinkers, our rabbis, our priests, our pastors. Has there ever been a more egregious disregard for the personal and for the freedom of religious expression in this country? I can't think of any, although we seem to be coming close to others too. It goes beyond simply keeping abortions from happening through bans. Catherine Stewart, writing in the New York Times this week, reported on this. She went to the National Right to Life Committee's meeting, where she was exposed to model legislation for the post-Roe era, for the Dobbs era, which will include, and they're going to see that it does, broad criminal enforcement and civil enforcement too. I mentioned civil liabilities. What kind do they mean? According to the text on the organization's own website, the model law that they are circulating throughout state legislatures will reach well beyond the performance of an actual abortion, an actual illegal abortion. It will include, this is their language, anyone aiding or abetting an illegal abortion, targeting people who need instructions over the phone, the internet, or any other medium of communication, consulting with anyone who urges them or recommends that they seek an abortion. All will be exposed to civil liabilities and punishments. Rabbi Danya Rutenberg, who is a conservative rabbi serving as the scholar in residence at the National Council of Jewish Women, has pointed out that these laws that are considering how to punish, us, represent also a liability, and I think she's right to point this out, for rabbis, when they are, in their estimation, practicing their religious freedom and following Jewish law, expressing their own theological or halachic Jewish legal opinions, and advise someone to get an abortion. It's very common. I've done it. And by the way, the National Right to Life Committee's next goal is to outlaw the pills that allow medication abortion. How and why this is happening, and to what larger issues is this ruling attached? It is, in my and others' estimations, no less than the result of the rise of Christian nationalism in this country. I don't know about you, I grew up having these little arguments with people. America's not supposed to be a Christian nation. Depending where I lived, I was told, yes, it is, especially when I lived in Texas. Yes, it is. Well, yes, now it is. Make no mistake about it. We're now living in a Christian nation. Not just a nation that has a majority of Christians, which was changing and is changing, but a nation that is run by one specific conservative Christian point of view. I'll talk about this more when I address the issue of the rise of Christian nationalism in August. But it is important for us to understand that it's a very big part of it when we consider how it's affected this court and dictated who is on it. I don't go on Facebook, but I do swim around in the sewer called Twitter, because a lot of personages use it, and I want to hear what they have to say. And yesterday I ran into this one by Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi. Today we wake up in a state where the church doors are open and the abortion clinic's doors are closed. All the glory to God the Father, amen. There were thousands of comments praising him for his wise leadership and for calling upon God as his source of leadership. The privileging of evangelical Christianity, I've got bad news for you, is not going to stop here with abortion. I'm sure you're all familiar with the concurrence written by Justice Thomas. It was contradicted by Alito's opinion, I should say that, but it was pretty explicit about what he wants next. In future cases, he wrote, we should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. What was he talking about? Griswold versus Connecticut, 1965 ruling. People should have access to contraceptives. Lawrence versus Texas, 2003. The law that, the ruling that outlawed, made unconstitutional outlawing sodomy. Laws against sodomy were traditionally used against gay people, of course, but these laws were very broad and suggested anyone engaged in non-procreative sex could be prosecuted. Many states are asking that these be opened up again, that these laws be prosecuted so that they can act as test cases, and arrive at the Supreme Court. And of course, Obergefell, the 2015 ruling on same-sex marriage. Now, Alito, I should say in fairness, says that the court will not take these down on the basis that it used for overturning Roe. But he also based his entire decision in part on a notion that abortion rights were, quote, not deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition. And I can tell you that for hundreds of years, neither was same-sex marriage, neither was the right to a sodomy, neither was the right to contraceptives, which we fought very, very hard for 100 years or so ago. There were 50 years of precedents, not just Roe, but many, many decisions based upon Roe. Texas and other states are already making noises about passing these laws. And where there are no noises about passing laws that would challenge precedent in the Supreme Court, we're seeing the same kind of cruelty anyway expressed, the Don't Say Gay law, which I've had more than one conservative explain to me, you didn't read the law, that's not what it says, only to open up every single day in my newspaper to find out that trans rights are under attack. Can't remember which county it was in, but I believe it was somewhere in central Florida, might be northern Florida, where now, it was Jacksonville, the presence of an openly gay or trans student needs to be reported to all parents if that student is in a PE class or on an overnight trip with the other students. This is legalized outing. And teachers, one in particular has already been fired in Orange County. There's a 9,000 teacher deficit in Florida. And if you don't think that this is also part of the attack on our public schools, then stick around for my August presentation, because that's part of the rise of Christian nationalism too. So where are we going to go from here? Well, I want to first welcome the President's executive order today, attempting to safeguard at least access to medication abortion and emergency contraception. Also, by the way, on the line, what do they call it? Plan B. Protections for patients' privacy, public education efforts so that people will understand what is and is not legal, and to keep safe legal options available where they can. But as we know, an executive order has very little power to begin with, much less any power whatsoever to overturn state laws or overturn Supreme Court decisions. I, for one, have felt that for too long we have depended upon the courts to enumerate our rights. The Constitution allows us to enumerate additional rights, and we have too often taken the road of going to the courts. Too long felt that they would be our protectors rather than going through the legislative branch, with all the difficulties I know that that presents. I had the feeling that someday the they who gave would take away, and even though I wanted to pretend it wasn't going to happen, here it was. And I'll tell you that many times when I suggested this, I was called hysterical. I mean, that's ridiculous. Stare decisis, stare decisis. Remember, what's her name? Collins, Senator Collins, right? Senator Collins is either, I would like to get into a room with her and just ask her for $1 million and tell her I'm going to use it to solve hunger. I bet she'd give it to me. This woman is clearly capable of being convinced of anything. Or she knew she was being lied to when three of the three justices who appeared before the Judiciary Committee in the Senate for approval vowed that they would do nothing to damage precedent, and then did exactly that. This, of course, is all a result of the election of 2016. We were running around, remember, women's marches and all that kind of stuff? And of course, nothing happened that day, that week, that month, or for the next few years. Well, plenty happened, but not on this front. But did anyone really think, after his final appointment to the Supreme Court, that it wouldn't happen? It was plain. It was plain to see. The greatest sadness I had of his entire term had nothing to do with him. It was the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, aleyha shalom. The only way forward for us is the ballot box, and I know that seems like not a very satisfying answer. But unfortunately, we do live in a country that has only two parties, that we are not going to agree with everything with the people with whom we find ourselves in coalition. But we have to get over that. We have to look at the bigger picture. And because we are debilitated by this weird electoral college, which is now used, I was taught once upon a time, would hardly ever happen in American history, but now regularly to allow minority elected presidential candidates to assume the position of president, even with that, we have the capability of overwhelming at the ballot box if we bring ourselves there. But it's going to require Americans to think beyond the price of gas, to think beyond whether or not they are in favor of this little thing or that little thing, or want to see a little bit more happening there. We've got to start working for the good of the nation overall, and then we can worry about those other things. We have let the big things slip away while we're sitting and worrying about the things that we really can tend to a little bit later. This isn't the preferred desideratum. This isn't what we want. It's what we have. It's what we were given. I don't wave the Constitution around. I'm departing from my script now. I don't wave the Constitution around like some people do, because I frankly don't think it's that great a document. I think it was a good document for its time. I don't have a great deal of respect for opinions of 300 years ago or 250 years ago guiding my life today. That's why I'm a humanist to begin with. If I'm not going to grant the Torah that I grew up believing came from God that kind of respect, I'm certainly not going to give it to the Constitution. What's great about the Constitution is it was the first. Yay. Why for America should it be the last? Why have so many countries jumped ahead of us? We're not even considered a full democracy. And by the way, the Christian nationalists, they don't want us to be. They like it this way. There are other ways that we can also plow ahead, at least on this one issue, including what we're doing Monday, which is turning in the petitions. The reproductive freedom petition, the ballot referendum, will be on the ballots in November. And I feel very good about their passage because, I don't know if you heard this, the highest number of signatures in the history of any ballot referendum. I think this is going to pass. But I tell you, we have many other things to worry about too. I was also not going to mention this tonight because it really isn't on the topic of abortion. But since I'm segueing into my next talk, and you'll have to wait till August for that, I want to invite you to go Google these words: independent state legislature doctrine. Look it up and know that if the Supreme Court goes that direction, our votes may not mean much at all. Let's use them while we can. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I know I'm supposed to leave you on a more positive level, but maybe Barbara will help me with that. They're pro-forced birth. They're pro-forced birth, yeah. They don't care about life. No. It's okay. It's one of the nice things about being a humanistic congregation. Okay. Good point. Pro-forced birth. Tom?
If you mentioned the referendum, that means it goes on to a voting ballot?
Yeah, you get to vote on whether abortion is going to be legal in this state.
And if we win...
It's legal in this state. In this state, yes. Yep. Right now it is illegal. There's a 1931 law that does not protect anyone, not on their basis of their life or whatever. However, there is a temporary injunction preventing that law from being prosecuted. Right. The Republicans are fighting that, but if this goes in November, it appears that we will have this right. The only thing the Republicans could do to change that is to pass a law legalizing abortion themselves because of that loophole. If you don't know about the loophole, ask someone who's involved in the politics here. All right, I don't want to keep you anymore tonight. I think I've depressed you enough, but I did want to leave you on that note of hope. At least for Michigan, there is hope. Oh, one last comment. Yeah, I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead.
Use the term conservative.
Only when discussing Christianity.
The thing is that justices like people like these, they're not conservative.
Well,
They're reactionary.
okay, they are conservative Christians. They are conservative Christians, and that's the only context I used it in, because I was being real careful with that. I do agree with your point. But they are conservative Christians. They are fundamentalist Christians. Evangelical is actually not an exacting term, because there are liberal evangelicals as well. Esther. Well, that's part of why we need to vote. We need to change the entirety of the Supreme Court. The Constitution allows us to restrict the jurisdiction of judges and to determine how many judges are on it. And we all know that Marlboro versus Madison, I hope you all know this, was a decision by the Supreme Court granting itself certain powers. Congress has always had the power to restrict or refine those ideas. Some of them are dangerous for everybody. We'd have to do that very carefully. But I don't want this to be a whole political discussion now, because you guys have plenty of outlets for that. I wanted my main point to come through. This is a violation of the freedom of religious expression of American Jews and millions and millions and millions of others. And we have a right to stand up for our 1A rights. I'm so tired of the other one. All right, we're going to sing If I Had a Hammer. We all know this one.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening. All over this land, I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out warning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out warning, I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Now I got a hammer, and I got a bell, and I got a song to sing all over this land. It's a hammer of justice, it's a bell of freedom, it's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. It's a hammer of justice, it's a bell of freedom, it's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land.
And once again, welcome to Joseph Palazzolo. Thank you to Arthur. Thank you to David for the slot for the streaming. Thank you to all of you. Shabbat Shalom.